Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Living Room Stage and Gallery here, presented by the Illinois Valley Community College Theater Department. We are so glad you're with us on this beautiful, beautiful Sunday, or whenever you're watching this, because these stay up online after we're done. So if you're here, though, we want you to participate. So make sure you say hi to Chad, who's in our tech booth, so to speak, from his house. Say hi to us, Chad. Got your mute on?
Hello, everyone.
There he is. He's in charge of showing the pictures and all that other stuff, so I can just concentrate on our guests. I'll be here, of course, next Sunday as well. And for those of you that, well, everybody that's a fan of our page is interested in theater, right? So, of course, all the theaters are at a standstill right now. We don't know what the future is going to bring, or I should say, when things are going to change for us to move forward. So we're all kind of stalled right now, including at IVCC. But next Sunday at 7:30, I'm going to have two guests, one from Stage 212, that's Kristen Mitchell, she's the president there, and one from Engle Lane Theater in Streeter, that's Kathy Hepner, and she's the president there. And so the three of us are going to talk about what we're looking to do here with the upcoming seasons, which obviously are pretty much shot for this year, but what we're looking ahead to do, because we're all in this together. So we're going to talk about it together. That's next Sunday. So make sure you set a reminder and watch us. Tonight we have a guest. We go way back. When I mean way back, back we were at IVCC together, actually. And that's Howard Johnson. Now, he has, a lot of us went into different phases of the entertainment industry. Howard, I tell you what, his bio, you'll see what I mean. He's an author of several books, both about improvisational comedy. The creator Del Close about it. He also was John Cleese's biographer and has written several books on Monty Python. He was in Life of Brian. He's been one of the foremost improv comedy teachers in the United States. He's been all over. We were fortunate to have him come back to IVCC a few years ago and conduct a workshop with us. And I've had the honor of performing improv with him not that long ago. So without further ado, if you got questions or anything, I hope you're a Python fan, an improv fan, whatever you want. Tons of pictures to share with you tonight. Say hello to my friend Howard. Where you at? Howard, you can join us.
Hello, Don. Let's see.
Yeah.
Started the video. No, I
Start the
didn't
video.
start the video.
There we go. There we go. Hey.
Right.
Hi.
I've only done this about 3,000 times in the last 2 months. So
I know. Did you know what Zoom was before all this?
I'd heard of it. I'd heard the name, but
Yeah.
never had any reason to do anything with it.
Yeah.
It's weird because I went from like being totally Zoom illiterate, like May 20th, and 2 weeks later, I'm teaching 4 Zoom classes every week. So I'm spending like 12 hours a week on Zoom. I'm socializing on Zoom. I'm, living on Zoom basically.
So we are too.
Thank God you're doing this, because
we have Saturday night cocktail parties with friends.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how we're going to go back to the old way now when we
I know, because
pajamas.
you don't have to clean your house. You can drink what you want. It's great. You don't even have to wear pants if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Well, Howard, I mentioned you and I were back at IVCC together. Can I say what year?
Oh God, yeah, sure.
Okay, I won't. It was a while ago.
We did do Stage 212 together also, I think. We did Dames.
Did we?
Remember that?
That's right.
Yeah.
Before they had their permanent home. Yeah, I was a member for a long time there before I left. And that's when they were stage hopping all over the place.
Right. IVCC.
Yep.
Oh my
we got a picture here grabbed from probably a yearbook or something. I recognize that lady on the upper left.
Alice Scott. Oh, wonderful.
I think Alice is watching.
Oh, good.
I can't remember. I have a bad memory for names, but the other two guys looked familiar.
Paul Eichhorn.
That's right. Oh, you're one of those people.
He played that. Well, he was my roommate in college for a year, so
Oh, okay.
you
That would
remember
do
that.
it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He played
Let's see.
Renfield, Dracula Baby, didn't he?
Yeah. Oh, Dracula Baby was a show we did at IVCC, but we didn't have the luxury of the 600 seat theater. We were in, well, let's see, now it's the Student Life Center, which is all jazzy and redone as of a couple of years ago. Before that, it was the counselor's offices, but when we were there, it was called the LRC, the Learning Resource Center, or something like that.
Oh my
So
God, you're right.
folding, yeah, and folding chairs and the furniture from the college and performing on that staircase at the end. That was our stage.
Yeah, and there were, yeah, the staircase, but we did have a stage at one point. So didn't we, somebody build a stage for us?
You know what? Maybe out in front we had a little bit of a stage, but I know the staircase had to be incorporated into everything we did.
Yes, it did. Yeah, it absolutely did.
It was our only exit. And the only thing I remember really about Dracula Baby, I mean, it was the 70s, but somebody playing a werewolf or something came running through the back of the house, and that's back when streaking was popular.
Yes,
That sound familiar? Yeah.
I remember. Yeah, I can't remember who it was. But
It was during a performance, and he tripped.
And then they walked backstage, and a woman named Betty that was in the cast was the only one backstage. And he just, went, oh, I can't believe that. He just comes up, he starts talking to her, start naked, and she doesn't know what to do. Yeah, absolutely.
Whoever it was had long hair. Again, it was the 70s, and I know he tripped on his way up the stairs to the stage, and my father told me afterwards. My mom said I couldn't tell if that was a man or a woman because of the hair, and he said, "Well, when he tripped, couldn't you tell that wasn't exactly landing gear coming down?" So yeah. That I remember. I don't know. Well, let's talk about you. After IVCC, you went to
Illinois State.
Illinois State. I was going to say ISU.
Yeah.
And you got
came back here. Oh, whoa! You got a bio. Oh my God!
You know, what this is, I printed out your Wikipedia page. I was like, I don't really know that, but no, I do have kind of a rundown. But you tell me, after you graduated from ISU, well, were you in the improv group down there at ISU?
There was no improv group at ISU when I was there.
Okay.
No, many years later, I went back down to ISU and worked with their improv group down there, and I'd go down there a few times a year and do a little bit of coaching and teaching and cheerleading for them, basically. Right. I don't know who is in the improv group down there now, but
pretty prestigious thing to be a part of, I understand.
Oh, it was nothing for years and years. See, when I started doing improv, there was almost no improv scene. There was Second City in Chicago. There was a place called the Improv Institute that John Michalski and his wife had started, and and there were a few like short-lived spin-off improv groups from people that Del Close had worked with. Del because also were directed at Second City, and so when I moved up to Chicago, the Improv Olympic had only been running for about a year. Improv Olympic is what it was called then, because it later became the IO Theater when the International Olympic Committee caught wind of it. I didn't care for that. So yeah. So I started studying with Del Close and Sharna Halpern. Del Close was just this incredible legend of improv. He's yeah. He was so well known. I wrote a biography of him later. Del was one of those people that worked with absolutely everybody. He was at Second City. I think he was in the very second show ever at Second City in 1959 or 50 or 60. Then after that, Del started working with the people who were there, people like Alan Arkin and Joan Rivers. at Second City. He went out to the committee. He started working with the legendary improv group, the Committee, back there in the Bay Area. Then when he came back to Chicago, after he got fired from Second City yet again, by the way, he got fired from Second City several times.
Oh, okay.
He's the one who worked with Harold Ramis and John Belushi and Bill Murray and Gilda Radner, all of those people. I mean, he discovered John Candy at the Canadian Second City and brought him down to Chicago. And he worked with George Wendt, Tim Kazurinsky, and just every famous person that went through Second City during a certain era, Del was the director for. Right. And eventually, Del was fired the second or third or fourth time from Second City, and he started working with Sharna Halpern. And Sharna had made him this famous offer. Would you come and teach a workshop for me? And it's like, for like $300 and some dope. And so Del said, sure. And so Del went ahead and did that. And they figured out they worked pretty well together. So they started up the Improv Olympic, or the IO Theater, as it's known now. So they started doing this, and I started studying a very short time later. We used to study at this little cheesy cabaret on North Wilton Street, which was right by North and Sheffield. And we started studying there, and eventually we started putting on shows, strictly improvised shows. My group was called the Barons Barracudas. There we are, right?
And I think we're looking, yeah.
Very nice. Couple iterations of the Barons Barracudas there. That's Dave Pasquesi on the left. Dave's still a dear friend of mine. He went ahead and he was on a show called Lodge 49 last year on AMC. He played Julia Louis-Dreyfus's ex-husband on Veep, if you remember that.
Sure.
Then let's see, John Judd is over there to the center. John is become a very distinguished real actor as opposed to an improv actor. Worked with everybody. He does a lot of stuff with the Goodman. I think he's done shows with Steppenwolf. But it's a great group. Joel Murray, let us not forget. Dear Joel was not here when this photo was taken, but Joel of the famous Murray family, and Joel is, dear friend of mine.
Awesome.
So we started performing together as the Barons Barracudas. See, we got that name because Del at one point did the voice of Baron Barracuda when they cut a record from the Dan TV show, if anybody remembers that. So that's what we were. Then we started doing improv in Chicago. We started doing Heralds, which is a long form of improvisation. And Del had tried that before, and it actually started with the Committee. But we started doing this long form of improvisation, and it caught on. And
about what time period is that? About what year was that?
It would have been, I think the first time we tried it was 84. We did a short run on that. Then 85, we started doing it every Tuesday and Saturday nights. And it started catching on. We would get all the people from Second City coming in on Tuesday nights. Because all the people at the ETC theater had Tuesday nights off, and so that's when we would get like people, Mike Myers and Bonnie Hunt and people like that would come in. It's Colbert. Colbert was on a college team, Stephen Colbert, and we had a college league that was formed that we kind of oversaw. It was pretty amazing because this little rat hole on North Wilton Street. There was a pole right off the center of the stage that you had to work around. There was one famous night where we were doing a scene, and there was there was this gasp from the audience. This rat ran right across the stage in the middle of the show. A few seconds later, followed by a cat that was chasing it. So,
oh, geez.
those are the kind of things that we had to work around. It was a little black box cabaret theater, but it was amazing, the talent that went through there and
Wow.
the kind of audiences we got. We later did a show called Honor Finnegan versus the Brain of the Galaxy. It was a show that Dell wanted us to write. So, and this was a written show. It was a musical. We put the show together, and it was pretty incredible. I mean, the amount of people that we got in there. Oh, that's good shot. Yes, that's the guy.
I'm telling you, Chad's all over it.
That's what?
Chad is all over it. He's got us covered.
Yeah, nice job, Chad. Yeah, that's Mick Napier on the second to the right there. Mick went on afterwards and founded the Annoyance Theater. If you're familiar with that, it's another terrific Chicago improv theater. So that's where Mick got his start with us all. Yeah, again, Cross Currents was just an amazing time. I remember one night, my friend Graham Chapman from Monty Python was in town. Billy Murray, Joel's brother, was in town. They all came to the theater the same night, and then we all went to my rat hole little apartment on North Racine and had a really great party.
Wow.
It was, things like that happened back then.
Great guest list. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Dell kind of held court because Billy was a huge fan of Dell, huge fan and admirer. And,
so you wrote 2 books on Dell, didn't you? Am I right?
I wrote one biography of Dell that we just saw, the smartest, or sorry about that, the funniest one in the room, The Lives and Legends.
Right.
Close. But then I co-wrote a book called Truth in Comedy with
there
Dell
it is. Yeah.
and Halpern. Yeah. We co-wrote that book, and we didn't think anything was going to come of it. We thought it would be gone in a couple of months, and it's still out there. What you're looking at there is the Chinese edition of Truth in Comedy from a couple of years ago.
So improv is big in China?
Improv is big everywhere, Don. This is what's so weird. Yeah, improv is just, we always joked about it, about improv, conquering the world, and we'll have to have an improv convention one of these days. Now every large city has an improv convention. People around the world. It's insane. Beyond our wildest dreams, the way improv has grown and taken off.
I enjoy Comedy Olympics. I know that's yet another, or not, I'm sorry, comedy sports. The teams that play on the comedy sports. And I have a good friend who runs Circa 21 Dinner Theater over in Rock Island. And for years and years, he had the team in his speakeasy there. And then they moved to their own theater, and then this hit. So we're still in contact with the Guys in Ties, they're called. But we always got a kick out of the improv or comedy sports. That was that was fun.
Yeah, they do a lot of fun stuff. Yeah,
I am going to say that long form was one of the most difficult things that I've ever done with you. Learned the whole premise of it once, and as we found when we were performing it so many times, was when it worked, it was the little girl with the curl in the middle of her forehead. When it was good, it was so good, but when it's bad, it was, oh, darn it.
Yeah, very true. And it takes a while to really get comfortable doing it. But you can, it can be done. You know what it's like when it works. It's just nothing better.
You live in Sandwich now. Weren't we doing that when we had a Follies in Yorkville? Or did we do that in Ottawa?
You were doing, it was in Yorkville. It was in
Yorkville. Yeah. You would have had a much shorter commute if you lived in Sandwich.
Now you tell me.
Yeah. Oops.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll come back. Theater's still sitting there empty. Well, listen, the improv, we got some other pictures, I think, don't we, Chad, of some other improv I have your list of pictures here. We're going all over the place. So I've got cheat sheets here. Improv. Yeah, we got the Barracudas. Tell me about the At Last, the 1948 show. What was that? What was the premise of that?
Oh, yes, yes. I was traveling with John Cleese, and At Last, the 1948 show was a sketch show that John had done just prior to Monty Python.
Oh,
It was 12 half-hour shows, and there were four of them. There was John Cleese, there was Graham Chapman, who was also in Python, Tim Brooke Taylor, who was in the Goodies. Tim just passed away of the COVID just a couple of months ago. And Marty Feldman was the fourth member. And so they did this sketch show, and John kept revisiting the sketches in the 1948 show. And when he was writing his biography, he was looking over the sketches again, and I even helped him do some of that. And he wanted, but the problem was these were old black and white shows, and it was very, 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 very hard to track down some of these sketches because the shows, as far as we knew, didn't exist at the time. So
sure.
I had to work with him to try to track down some of these sketches that were lost. There might be an audio tape, and I transcribed what we had of the audio. And so we kind of reconstructed At Last, the 1948 show. And what we ended up having to do, I was talking with John when we were traveling, and I can't remember whose idea it was, but the idea was we could remount these shows. I could try them out at at the IO Theater in Chicago. We'll put them up on their feet and see how they work. And I recast it. I did some changes. It was almost an all-female cast, except for three of us who did just a very few sketches. So we recast the whole thing. I brought in John Cleese's daughter, Camilla Cleese, to work in it as well. Oh, nice! You've got a shot of it. Yes, that's the entire cast, and we're doing a sketch called Top of the Form there, where we all play schoolboys and schoolgirls. So that's Camilla with the dog right there in front of us.
Oh, okay.
So
Camilla, sorry to interrupt, that's John's daughter?
It's John's daughter, yes.
Okay.
And so just a couple of years ago, we put this up and we ran it. We only could run it for a couple of weeks, but we packed them in. Actually, if we can keep that back up, Chad, is there a way to put that back up? And I will show you. If there is, great. If there's not,
we can go back.
Well, anyway, I just wanted to point out on the left there, the far left of the screen, that's my dear friend Michael McCarthy, who started the writing program at the IO. Michael just passed away just a month or so ago, and we just had a Zoom memorial service for him. Brilliant writer. He used to write for Saturday Night Live. He used to write for Sesame Street, and he used to teach writing. This was the last show that Michael actually was in, so I just wanted to point that out.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, amazing career. Just we lost him way too young. But anyway, Michael created the writing program that he launched at the IO, and that's really what I'm doing now. So I'm teaching all these writing classes at the IO. I've kind of taken over for Michael, so he passed this whole thing along to me. So thank you, Michael, if you have Wi-Fi up there.
Well, a bunch, excuse me, we had several people request membership on our page, and I thought, I think that's because Howard's coming on. So some of your friends, I think, are on here for this tonight. So
nice.
And I'm not tech savvy enough to, take a look here, but I'm watching the comments here. We got a lot of hellos from we'll get back to those. So when you were up there with so
we're all over the board.
Right, you were. Now, I know we're going to skip around here because this is so interesting. Let's rip through some of those pictures, Chad, under that improv heading that you have there. I know we saw the Barracudas and rehearsing there. Maybe you can tell us about some of this other stuff that was in here. I think we have a Muppet with you, don't we?
Oh, yeah, yeah. That was just a bit of silliness. That was. Oh no, here's
that's not the Muppet. No.
No, very nice shot of the Barron's Barracudas reunion. We had a reunion maybe 5 years ago or so, and there's Joel Murray in the lower left, and Sharna Halpern in the middle, because we lost Del Close, of course, a few years ago.
Right.
Dave Pasquazi and I in the back, and lower right there is an honorary Barracuda. That's Timmy Meadows.
Right.
Like on every TV show in the country that you want to see, right. It seems like. Wonderful, funny guy. Loved him. And Mark Belts.
The guy dead center looks familiar. Who?
Chris Barnes. Chris has been in a lot. Chris has done a lot of things. Trying to think where you might know him from. He did when Carol Burnett did a variety show that revived. When she revived the variety show with Carol and Company. Chris was one of the rep company members there.
Oh, okay.
Mark Beltzman is up there to the left from Chris. Mark was, well, he was in Billy Madison. He's done a lot of things off and on. So,
so this is just 5 years ago. Why should I know the name Sharma? She looks familiar and she sounds familiar.
Sharna Halpern owns and runs the IO Theater. Still does. She was there when I started doing this stuff, and she never walked away. She's been doing it ever since. So
she's owned a theater for all this. I admire her. So as someone who knows how difficult that can be. Yeah, and then you wrote the 2 books about Del. Let's move on to something here that I know a lot of. You've mentioned being on tour with John. Now you're of course talking about John Cleese. Tell me, first of all, how did you even get involved with the Monty Python group? Well, how'd you become a Python?
Yeah, I was a fan. I'm honorary Python at best, but
honorary.
I'll take whatever you want to throw at me. But no, I started out as a fan. I was probably at IVCC when I watched the first episodes of Monty Python's Flying Circus when they first started airing over here on PBS, and became an instant fan. I always kind of felt like, I was such a comedy geek, just major comedy nerd, that, if I'd been alive back when Laurel and Hardy and the Marx Brothers were making films, there's nothing I would have wanted more than to hang out on the sets watching them. And when I watched Python, I felt like the same thing. I felt like the same twinge. Like there was that recognition that what they were doing was special and different. And so I just kind of, in the back of my mind, I just want to get to know these guys. I want to get closer to these guys. I want to know what it is they're doing. I want to hang out with these guys.
In a total non-stalkery way.
I wouldn't say that. No, not at all. Yeah, of course, nowadays, yeah, it would have been stalked. But what the reality was even more amazing, because I ended up, being in Tunisia, working on Life of Brian with these guys.
We have pictures of this.
Yeah. Yes, good. I have many pictures of this as well.
Sure.
Yeah, this was, I'm the upper left-hand corner on this one, by the way, and there's Graham Chapman and Terry Jones in the center with the beard. The joke being, for those of you who have never seen it, that women weren't allowed to go to stonings, so there were vendors selling beards so that the women could beards and pretend to be men. So what happened was, the very first day of filming for Life of Brian, I was there and I had just bought a 35 mil camera. And I'd been talking to Graham and I'd been showing him the camera earlier, and they decided they're going to go ahead and start filming a day early. And we were going to start filming on a Saturday instead of the following Monday. And the still photographer hadn't shown up yet. The still photographer was flying in that weekend, but they were starting early. So they were going to shoot the stoning sequence, and they didn't have a still photographer there. So Graham volunteered me. So, well, Howard's got a new camera. And so they gave me a handful of film. And so I shot all sorts of pictures of the stoning sequence. Then a couple of weeks later, they were looking at it and we had to do some retakes because they wanted to make sure that people got the joke. So they needed a couple of men in there. The only one I think you can see is me, really, that didn't have a beard, but was still obviously a man, which hopefully I passed. So they shot into the crowd, and so that's why they wanted me in there, and they put me next to Graham, who had a real beard, and obviously a man. So the stoning sequence and this shot were actually taken about 2 weeks apart. And obviously the stoning was going on at the time.
Yeah. Good luck for you there.
That's nice. I should have had a beard. I was supposed to have had a beard in that scene also. Well, yeah, I was a double for Michael Palin. There's a scene where there's a bunch of prophets standing along a little wall, and the camera does a tracking shot, and you see all these prophets, blood and thunder prophets, just start screaming at the top of their lungs. And then you see cut to Michael's prophet, who looks just like I looked, except with a beard. And Michael played the very boring prophet, and he talked about a friend shall lose his friend's hammer, young will not. And he went on and on and on, which Michael does naturally anyway. He's very funny being boring. So this is just me being the boring prophet. Well, Michael got a little break in the filming.
Yeah, that's nice.
Oh, this is a nice little shot here. This was a shot on this sort of a balcony overlooking a small courtyard. See, we did most of our filming in a town called Monastir, and most of the filming in Monastir was done in a place called the Rabat, which was an ancient Muslim castle. It was a national landmark. And so we had to build walls. We had to put false walls up on the outside because we couldn't spray paint Romans Go Home real walls, or the Muslims would have been very disappointed in us, I'm sure. So what they did, right below to the right and downward, there was a scene where all the crucifixes were being taken off to the cross. And the idea was there were Roman soldiers, there's myself, and there were a couple of others of us up there just throwing rocks and bits of food down at the crucifixes. So that's, I don't think that made it into the final cut of the film. But
I was going to say, you're wearing a suit of, there we go. All right.
Yes. That's just, I'm second to the right, and John Cleese is in the center there. A couple real Venetian extras on the left, and a guy named Bernard McKenna on the right. Bernard, I believe, is Australian. He was a good friend of Graham's. He did some writing with Graham. And I wanted to, I doubled for everybody. John Cleese says I played more roles in the film than he did. And would have been right. I don't know. But I was a Roman soldier in this particular scene. And John, when the filming had stopped, I asked John, can we take a photo here? Because this is just, this is kind of cool. And so John started camping it up here when we were being soldiers. And so the real still photographer, who had arrived by that time, grabbed his camera also and took a ton of shots like this. So this is a somewhat well-seen pose, I guess, just of us just screwing around on the set, basically.
It's funny. It's good look for you. I like it. It took me a minute to figure out that was you there. So
yeah.
So what year was that filmed?
That was filmed in 78. The film was released in 79.
Okay. I thought that, but I didn't want to show my stupidity. So you did, 10 years later, you wrote a book, The First 20 Years of Monty Python.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, after.
Am I jumping?
Well, you could jump wherever you want. Just, yeah. Wherever you want to jump, Don, because it's my life is not coherent, so why should this interview be?
I know. Throughout a year, I couldn't tell you what state I was in or who I was performing with or anything. Okay, there's the book, the first 20 years.
Yeah, that was my very first Python book.
And there you are on the cover. In that
yes, yeah, totally coincidental. I didn't tell the book designer. Just lucked out. No, I did the book. See, after Life of Brian, I stayed in touch with all the guys. It really kind of cemented the friendship. I was in the Hollywood Bowl show, and the Pythons did Monty Python live at the Hollywood Bowl. I was in that show, and we stayed in touch. Whenever the Pythons would come through Chicago, I would always meet up with them. I mean, they weren't really working together as a group.
Right.
After the Hollywood Bowl, they did one other film as a group. So they were all doing individual things.
But you did travel around with John Cleese,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, yeah. That came a lot later.
You what?
That came a lot later, though.
Okay. Oh, later. Okay. Well, let's stick. Well, here we go. Here we go. Time jump.
This is proof you cannot dispute. Yes. Yeah. This was at a Python reunion. This was after Graham died. Graham passed away in 1989. But the Pythons kept having reunions. There was one in 94 in LA. There was one in 99. I don't remember where that one was even. But there were a lot of Python reunions. This, I think, might have been 2009. There was a documentary that came out that Terry Jones's son, Bill, kind of put together. And this was just the green room there. I realized I'd never had a photo with all of the guys together. And this just seemed like the right move to make at the right time. So
now, when you were touring with John, was that like personal appearances, talks? What's the context of that?
Yeah, well, I worked for John originally in 2000. John asked me to come out and work as his personal assistant. And so I was living in Santa Barbara with him for about close to 5 years in Santa Barbara, just as his personal assistant. He was doing, he would do occasional film work, some recording. He would do some, some personal appearance stuff. So I was working with John also on speeches. He did a lot of corporate speeches. I would help him customize his speeches back then. Then John got divorced, and it was a $20 million disaster. So he moved back. He moved out of Santa Barbara, and we moved back here. Our family did. So we came back to Illinois, but I still kept working for John. I kept working with him on speeches, customizing speeches.
Where did he move to?
All over. London.
Oh, okay.
He moved to London. He kept a flat in New York. He had a flat in San Francisco. He had all over the place. John collects apartments. But when he was there, he started working on his biography, which was called So Anyway. He needed somebody to travel with him, be his personal assistant. So that's what I did. I became his personal assistant again when traveling. So John was traveling around the US. We traveled through Canada a little bit. And what would happen was John would do personal appearances. And if you bought a ticket to the personal appearance, you would get a free book, or it might have been the other way around. So right there, he would have people interview him. That was Tim Meadows right there, who I had interviewed John. My friend Bob Odenkirk did an interview with him in San Diego. Different people would interview him in each different city. I interviewed him in Naperville. I had friends of mine, reporters or disc jockeys that would come in and do the interviews with him.
Okay. Megan Mullally and Nick Offerman.
Yes. John had worked on Will and Grace. He'd done 6 or 8.
That's right.
Will and Grace appearances. He loved Megan. So they always got together whenever they could. So we were traveling through Boston. Nick was doing a pre-Broadway tryout of Confederacy of Dunces. And so Nick and Meg were in Boston doing this. And John had just done an interview show for the book. So we came back and we met him at the hotel. We were in the hotel bar, and so we sat and we visited them we visited with them for quite a while, really. And it was interesting because Nick is from Minooka, Illinois. And so we compared notes. And Megan, I think she went to Northwestern, but she certainly did theater in Chicago.
Yeah, I know she was up there a long time.
Yeah, and we discovered that she was up there, and there was a little bit of crossover from when she was still there, then I was there, and then I was still there when Nick was starting out.
Right.
So, and it also very interesting. Nick and I got into a big discussion of the Cherry Mine disaster because a good friend of his was trying to get that turned into a film. I had adapted Steve Stout's book on the Cherry Mine disaster, and I was trying to get a little traction going on that. So we were going back and forth on the Cherry Mine disaster in Boston.
The musical? Was it the musical?
That'll be the sequel. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Big happy show.
Yeah. But lovely people. John doesn't hang out with people who aren't fun, who aren't good people.
I would imagine that. And they both seem to be, I mean, people, God knows people can appear to be different, once you work with them. It's like, wow, they're real human beings. But those two, I don't know, they just look very, here's what you see is what you get. I love their sling commercials. I have a feeling that that's probably very easy for them to do.
Oh, right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're wonderful together. I'm glad they're doing work together now. They weren't at the time.
They did briefly in Parks and Rec, where she played his ex-wife, maybe, or something.
Absolutely right. Yes, I've just been rewatching Parks and Rec, and that's true, because that's something I missed the first time through. Here's my dear pal, Eric Idle. I've only known for 35 years or so. And my friend Bob Odenkirk, who I've only known for about 30 years. So, no, 35, oh God, long time. Yeah. But we were in Naperville because Eric's book was coming out, and we were doing the same thing. Odenkirk was interviewing, because Bob's from Naperville, was interviewing Eric when his book came out. So I got a chance to catch up with the both of them. And yeah, again, I started working with Bob. He was working with Del Close the same time I was, the very first time. So it would have been like probably 83 or so. Great guys.
What else we got there, Chad, with all that? As he turned into, I'm looking at the little list here of picture, the big list of pictures we got. Okay, this excuse me. Selfie, apparently. What?
Yes. Yeah, this was a very wow. This was a pretty emotional night. That's my friends Michael Palin and Terry Jones from Monty Python. I was quite close to Terry, and Terry was diagnosed with a form of dementia a few years ago. And Terry knew the score, basically. I produced a few shows with Terry. I did one in Chicago. We did one in Atlanta at the Fox Theater there, where I'd bring Terry in and I'd interview him. But it got to the point where he wasn't able to do it anymore. I produced some personal appearance things, but it just got to be too difficult for him. Sure. And so I wanted to go see him and spend a little bit of this was one of the personal appearances right there. That was in Chicago, right at, I think it's the Laugh Factory now, but before that, I can't remember what it was when we were there. But Terry, as I say, was unable to do it anymore. So I wanted to go see him one more time and spend a little bit of time with him before, while he would still know me, well, he'd still
Yeah.
recognize me. So I went out, went to London, went to Highgate, and stayed at his house for a week. This was the same time. Oh yes, that was the Gatehouse pub. Terry, even as the dementia started to take hold, it was the kind where he couldn't really speak. He was having a hard time communicating. But he was still, his quality of life was still really good. He'd get up, he'd have breakfast, we'd go to the shops downtown, we'd stop at the pub on the way back home from the shops. He would take a walk on the Hampstead Heath. He would do some reading and cook dinner that night, or we'd order out. And then every night he would put on an old musical, an old MGM musical. And we would have
The
beers.
best kind.
And I told John Cleese, kind of what Terry's routine was. It sounds like the perfect kind of retirement to me.
No kidding.
Yeah. So anyway, last photo there with Michael. I rang up Michael and I said, "Do you want to have dinner with us? We're going to go down to the local pub. Serve a great dinner." And so we went down there because the idea was, when I was with Terry, I did about 95% of the talking, and it got to be a little bit tiring, and I was losing my voice. And so I talked to Michael. He said, "That's great. We'll have dinner together with Terry, and at least Terry can listen to us talk." And it was wonderful because Michael did about 95% of the talking that night.
Yeah, always nice to have those people in the room.
Yeah. And then the next day I left and I flew out, and that's when the announcement was made. That's when he went public with his diagnosis. And then of course we lost Terry in February, I believe it was.
Right. I know that was fairly recent that I saw that on your page. That.
Yes. Oh, this is a nice shot too. This was in 1999. Terry was in town. I can't quite remember exactly what it was for, but Terry, obviously, they're in the center. We were at a brew pub just a couple of doors south of the IO Theater at that time, and that's Del Close there on the right. My great friend and mentor. So I was with two great friends and mentors there. And then Del passed away just a few months after that from emphysema. So a lot of death. The older you get, the more you seem to.
I know, Howard. I know. I'm surprised I'm still kicking at this point of the game.
I won't die, Don. Let's make a deal right now.
Right. We're the same age. I mean,
yes.
Did you ever think? I mean, every time I turn a new, let's say, landmark age, like this one last time was just awful to wrap my head around. It's like, well, that's not so bad. But I think of when we were in IV together, or even like when I was 30, it's like if somebody told me that they were my age, I think, whoa, they should be dead by now.
Oh, yeah. You get a whole new perspective coming at it this way. But,
we got something else coming up here.
Oh, good. Yeah, this was actually, this was a fun little thing. I was coaching the Illinois State improv team for a little while there. And my friend Joel Murray, there on the right, he was touring with Whose Line Is It Anyway? It's Ryan Stiles up there with him. And I'd seen Joel like one evening and said, "I'm going down tomorrow to, work with these kids down in Bloomington." He said, "Well, we're going to Bloomington tomorrow." I said, "Really? Okay. Well, these kids that are doing improv love you guys. You got any time off? Let me know." So I brought the Whose Line Is It Anyway guys to the Illinois State improv team. And they got to watch these guys and vice versa. So
I love Brian Stiles. I think he is one of the funniest people doing improv.
Very funny, very nice guy. Yeah, as was
the
Joel.
whole gang.
Yeah, the whole group. But it was nice because some of these guys learned to love improv by watching Whose Line Is It Anyway? And, and they knew they were in the room with them. Well,
that's the point of reference we have for people in this area, because Okay, well, that looks like Bill Murray, and you're holding a
Yes,
plaque about Dell.
yes. I had written my Del Close biography, and I talked to Bill and Joel and Brian Murray, and they'd all been really helpful. And Del was, I got a call from Brian Doyle Murray, and he said they're inducting Del into the Manhattan, Kansas High School Hall of Fame. I can't be there. Could you show up and maybe, accept for him or something like that? I said, sure, but I'm sure they're going to want me. And he said, well, I'm going to talk to somebody else too. And see, I've known Bill off and on for years and years. So Bill showed up. We accepted the plaque for Dell. We accepted the Manhattan High School Hall of Fame honor. The woman on the right was one of Dell's girlfriend in the 8th grade. So we accepted that, then had dinner afterwards, and like I say, I seem to see Bill every few years in all kinds of really weird, unexpected circumstances. Wonderful guy,
well,
the nicest guy as you would expect, because he showed up to accept this honor for his friend Dell. So
another Chicago area guy, isn't he?
Yeah, Wilmette, actually.
Wilmette,
Yeah.
that's right. I knew it was something like that.
Yeah.
What else we got there, Chad, to take a look at? This is
all the time and trouble to go to Manhattan, Kansas to pay.
I know.
So
When you said Manhattan, I'm like, okay, Kansas. Okay. Must have gone to school there.
Yeah, yes.
Here we got some more stuff. Oh, okay. Bring him back to local here. I know the guy. I know both these guys. Come on.
This was a lot of fun. We were back in Ottawa in 2009. And this is my friend Walt Willey, of course. Walt and I grew up together, literally, from like 4 or 5 years old. And, we'd always stay in touch. We'd get out of touch occasionally. We'd always get back, and it was like, we'd never left. And we were talking one day, we'd originally been talking about doing some kind of an improv or some kind of acting lesson school thing. And that never happened. But we had the idea of, getting community theater going back again in Ottawa, because, Streeter had one, IVCC had one, Stage 212, and we decided we wanted to revive theater in Ottawa. So 2009, we did The Odd Couple, obviously.
Right.
So, huge.
Now, back in the dark ages, Ottawa did have Ottawa Community Players. Remember that?
Oh, I was part of it. Yes.
Yeah, as was I for a little while. Yeah.
Oh, no, what shows did you do?
Oh God, I have no idea. I think Dames at Sea.
No, that was.
I've done Dames at Sea more times in my life than I care to think. I've done it professionally 4 times. So, yeah. And you know what? I'm at the point in my life, there are the 3 characters. I mean, well, 4 if you count Hennessy, who sometimes doubled as the captain, but there's the ingenue, the goofy sidekick, and the captain who's supposed to be older. I have now played all 3 of those parts. Yeah.
Oh, better you than me, Don.
I shattered my hip and my leg, and I'm mostly metal and stuff. This is 2012, 13 maybe. And they said, you're probably not going to walk real well again with a limp, and you sure as hell can't dance. And I said, it's kind of my job.
Wow.
And through intense therapy and a whole lot of pain, I tap danced my way through that damn Dames at Sea when we did it at IVCC. 8 months later. It didn't feel good, but damn it.
Oh, no.
I did it. Yeah.
Wow. Well, you're a better man than I am, Don, if you can do that.
Well, the only thing that I took solace in is when that happened, they said, you're too young to break a hip. All right. So you were, thank you. In Ottawa, I know that Walt moved to Nashville now. His wife has a singing career, right? Or something. And so they're now in Nashville. But, oh, look, Alice is so helpful. She said, Don, one of the things you were in was I Never Sang for My Father at Ottawa Community Players.
Wow. She
I'll take
knew
her
that.
word. Alice remembers everything. I have to take her word for it because I don't know.
Very dangerous to remember all that stuff. Oh,
It is. It is.
now
Sometimes
I'm worried.
I'm glad. Yeah. Uh, I'm just kind of checking to see here if anybody has questions. By the way, if you have questions, make sure you comment there because we will, Chad will get them to us, or I'm trying to keep one eye on this as well. But where were we? Ottawa. And you did several shows there for several summers.
Yes.
From what year did you start that? I don't quite
2009,
remember.
I believe it was. We opened with
Okay.
Odd Couple, and it was nice because we bring in soap opera stars because Walt knows
Right.
all of them.
Right.
And so we brought in Jill Larson for Odd Couple. We brought in Julia Barr to do, what did we do? Arsenic and Old Lace. Yes. We did Plaza Suite. We did Death Trap. We did, The Mind is a Sieve.
Did you do MAME? Not the musical MAME, but anti-MAME?
They did that after I had left. Yeah.
Okay.
That was the summer I had to go to London because the Pythons were doing that show at the O2.
Oh, right.
Yes.
This looks like you as the doctor in Harvey.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I knew as soon as I did that shot that this was going to be the shot that they were going to use everywhere for the show. With my fingers making the rabbit holes in the hat. That's Vincent Irizarry, by the way, on the left. And
what soap is he on? I don't.
He was in several things.
Okay.
All my children, I think a couple of times, and I think he's back on a different one now. I don't watch the soaps. I'm sorry.
I don't either. I never have. And I was hosting a telethon, and Walt was on it, and I've known Walt, forever as well. And at the end, and because they all sound alike to me. They all look alike to me, and the only soap operas I ever liked were the Carol Burnett spoofs of them, where where they would over-explain everything. But at the end of the whole thing, he was leaving, and I said, "I'll see you." Okay, he was on what? All My Children.
Yes.
Okay, and there's another one that starts with an A or All My. I don't know. I said, "All right, so everybody, we'll be tuning in to see Days of Our Lives or whatever it was." I said, and he stopped. He was already off camera and stuff. And he came back. He took my microphone. And he goes, "All My Children, Don. All My Children." And I'm like, yeah, because. But no, I like you. I go way back with Walt as well. Also, on a local level, I'm looking at all this stuff that you've done to put your writing talents into to use. I see for the Times Press, you were a writer and a copy editor in '98 to 2000.
That was actually that was the Times Press in Streeter. I was doing that right before I actually started up working for John Cleese. So I left that job for John Cleese.
Okay, that's always the landmark. It's like, I was doing this when I left to get this tour or whatever. Those landmarks stick with me. What I was doing when I got to leave, What is this Events Comics? You were the marketing and promotions for Event Comics. It was independent comic book.
Boy, I should have given you some artwork for there. Yeah, I worked in the comic book field for a while.
I think we have something on that. Did you write a graphic novel?
Yeah, I wrote one, yes, but that was a different thing. That was a different period. I wrote one when I was working for John.
Was it Superman kind of?
Superman.
Chat, don't we have a...
Yes, that's it. That's it.
There we go.
Yeah. It's what if Superman's rocket ship had landed in England instead of America? And so we wrote a graphic novel. It's still out there, and they just re-released it in as a trade paperback again.
I kind of like that it's written by you with some help by John Cleese.
Yeah, well, John didn't want to take too much credit for it because he
Yeah.
felt like he didn't contribute enough to it. So that was fine, because John is very sweet that way. And John Byrne is kind of a legend in the comic book field, and Mark Farmer did the inking. Yeah, it was kind of a little side project that I did while I was working for John. I picked up some extra cash and
Well, yeah.
fun of writing it. Yeah.
You've written everything from biographies to this, I still call them comic books, graphic novels. I know, graphic novels. You've written two, wait here. You know what? On Wikipedia, they don't have your stuff in chronological order here. I'll have to
I don't
fix it.
know where that Wikipedia page came from or who put it up there, but I have no idea. Somebody just said, "Hey, you're on Wikipedia." I go, "What?"
Well,
and I looked.
there's nothing embarrassing on it.
Oh, good.
Oh, you know who might have put it up there? Who's the guy that does the local movies, the Autumn Bluffs and the horror movies that they produce around here?
Oh,
Brian Ziegler.
yeah. Okay.
Maybe he did it for you because those are in here. Life of Brian isn't, but those two are.
That's a dead giveaway if ever I've heard one.
Yeah. Perhaps you should go ahead and direct that. Anyway, okay, so you wrote the first 20 years of Monty Python in '89, and now for something completely trivial, the Monty Python Trivia and Quiz Book in '91, and then you got in '93 Life Before and After Monty Python, the Solo Flights of the Flying Circus. And
Yeah.
you've written 4 on them. And then Monty Python's Tunisian Holiday, My Life with Brian. That's pretty funny. That came out not that long ago, 2008.
Yeah, that was the book there. That was basically my journal that I kept during the making of Life of Brian. That's what that latter one was. Yeah, I've written 1 or 2 ebooks, also Python ebooks. I'll be honest, I kind of lose track of them.
And all this stuff is available on Amazon, I'm guessing.
A lot of it is out of print, but they're ebooks too. They've done ebooks of a number of these. So yeah, just go to Amazon, and if you've got an ebook reader, yeah, you can catch up with it, I'm sure.
All right. Well, getting back to our local area here now. You got no, let's leave local for a minute. No, okay. So the last one came out about 2000. It was fine here, yeah. And for you, your sandwich, you're kind of that's very like 2 coast living for somebody from here, you know. All right, you were on 2 game shows, and I'd love to know how this came about. You were on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire in 2007.
Yes.
But before that, in 2002, you were the Weakest Link contestant.
Yeah. Do you remember the Weakest Link? The nighttime show had that really mean lady.
Yeah, you are all I remember is you are the Weakest
Link. Yeah. That was the catchphrase.
But was it wasn't physical challenges. It was like questions, right?
The contestants would line up, and the daytime one, which was what I was on, had 6 contestants, and I think the nighttime one had 8 or 9 contestants. And they'd each get asked a question all along, and the more yeses or more correct answers they got in a row, the higher the money totals got. And if you got somebody got the wrong answer, then it'd drop back down to 0. That's how that one worked. But,
so how did you do on that one?
I did fine. I was I heard I was living in Santa Barbara at the time, and had on the local radio station is auditions for the Weakest Link, Saturday morning.
Yeah.
What the hell, So I went down, auditioned, and I don't even remember anything about the audition other than I think it was written maybe. Yeah, but then they brought me down to Universal City, and it's really weird. This was a thing where you had to work, where we worked together with other contestants, where you kind of like, this is who we're going to get out. It was a little bit like Survivor that way,
Okay.
And I remember there were 3 women and 3 men, and with the three men, I rode down the elevator with one guy, and we were both, I think we both had jackets and ties on, and just, street clothes under our arm or something.
Right.
I knew it was the same deal. It says weakest link. Yeah. Okay. Let's work together a little bit. Sure. Yeah. And then the show was about to tape, and we were under the bleachers, for the taping. And the other guy, young short guy, very excitable guy. And the women all went off to the bathroom. The guy says, "What are we going to do? What are we going to do?" I said, let's us guys work together. Okay. And so, because other people vote you out, you see, and that's what so you have to work together. And I worked together with these guys, and the guys were the last three contestants there, and I eventually won out, and I won 12 grand, which was okay. But if one other person had gotten one of the answers correct, it would have been like up to 125 grand. But yeah.
I'd be happy with 12. How'd you do on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I remember watching when you were on, but I don't remember the result.
Yeah,
I was back here by then. I was back in this area by then. That was 2007.
Okay.
Yeah. How'd you do on that one? How far'd you get?
I walked away with 250,000. Paid for our house.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
So we got the mortgage this day, thanks to.
Were you required to paint the logo of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire on the side of the house?
If they would have asked, all they need to do is ask. Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, listen, we at IVCC, since you've been gone, since I've been back, it's kind of like been a reunion for me for 16 years with strangers.
You're never leaving, Don. I got news for you.
Do you know what's weird? We were the first class, if you remember this, in the new building, which was the campus as we know it now. On the first three buildings or four of the new building.
There were three new buildings when we started, I think.
Right, because most of our classes were in those horrible Quonset huts that you had to hike across the field.
Yeah,
the barracks. Yes. That was an interesting thing. But when we got into the new building, and the theater, God, we would have killed for that theater, because the first show I was in at IVCC was when they were still performing at the Valley Theater, that big cavernous old Spring Valley Theater, which is now an apartment building.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a show there, an IVCC show, The Crucible, because Eichhorn was in that and a couple other friends.
I was in The Crucible. Everybody's been in The Crucible if you've been in shows. The Crucible, yeah. And then we moved into the LRC, but now we have an improv team. Well, of course you know this. You came and coached them for a while, and David, Dr. Keister, has been in charge of that. And we were talking earlier about the Illinois State University improv team. Usually you have to apprentice for a year before you're accepted into it. But with IVCC, because of our active improv team, if our kids are transferring from IV, they're automatically accepted into the improv team at ISU. Did you know that?
Nice. Very nice. I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
And next time you're over, I have that bottle of Kraken rum. This is completely skipping subjects, but when we did the long form improv over there in Yorkville, there was a bartender down the street. We used to go to the bar just a couple blocks down from the theater after our show. And whatever our improv was, it was something about an octopus, and she happened to be there. And so she gave me a bottle of Kraken rum, which I have been saving for a special occasion. It's awesome rum. So I've drank other.
Oh, that's great, John.
We got a couple questions for you here. I've lost them. Do you remember Donna Stone, one of our instructors from IV? She said, I agree, long form is definitely challenging, but an experience I enjoyed immensely. I think she was in our workshop. Alice
Right, I
Scott
remember
says
that.
to tell you hi and to remind us that it was Mark Ramza from Streeter who ran through Dracula Baby naked. He fell flat on his face and everything else right in front of her.
The women all remember the details, don't
I
they?
know, I know. I
Yeah.
just remember the audience going crazy, and I'm like, "What?" And I was backstage. And,
Yeah, I was
yeah.
backstage too. I didn't see a thing. I just heard these gasps.
Deb and Berntori say hello. She wants to know what your favorite show that you did was with at Willy World when you guys were doing the shows over there. Can you pick a favorite?
Oh God. Uh, how do you pick a favorite child? You know,
I
well,
know.
my favorite child is Morgan because I only have one, uh, but I liked them all for different reasons. You know, Odd
Yeah,
Couple was the first and it was the biggest.
yeah.
I loved Harvey because, well, actually, what was the second one? What did I just say it was? The one we
Oh,
did at Julia Bar. Oh,
the the poison,
Arsenic
the
and Old Lake.
arsenic.
There we go. I loved
Right.
Arsenic because I got to do all the makeup, because the set was spectacular, and because I got to work with Deb Torrey after many years.
There you go.
So
She's a doll. I've worked with Deb a lot. A lot.
yes, yeah. So I'll stick with that answer because I got to work with Deb Torrey.
You know what? We were talking about all those productions of Dames at Sea. Debbie and I were in Dames at Sea in Peoria in '84, I think. Deb, you're gonna have to tell me if that's right. But yeah, at my theater down in Peoria before I moved to the Big Dinner Theater, I think we did Dames at Sea, and I thought Deb was in that one. I know she was Maria in The Sound of Music when we did it, so that's the bigger one. Anyway, what do you think is gonna what, the IO, the improv comedy clubs, not to mention theater? I just read an article that Broadway is not planning on opening until well after Labor Day, and they're going to play it by ear. I had Eric Chambliss on a couple weeks ago. My old buddy was he's touring with Jersey Boys, but he's on hold now, and the tours take their cue off of what Broadway does. And I know there's been a lot of casualties on Broadway. Today I just read a bunch more, and it's just depressing. Where do you think? Where do you see this going? Myself, I'll tell you where I'm at. I'm in wait and see. Next few months, let's see what happens before we make any plans. How do you think improv and IO is going to approach this?
Well, I think improv and the IO in particular, again, nobody knows for sure. When this whole thing came down, it was so quick too. I mean, one afternoon I got an email. Well, the IO is scrubbing down everything. We have bleach. We're going to, and antiseptic and all of this. And a few hours later, I get another email. I was closing for the moment, and it just so it all came down like a house of cards. I was in the middle of teaching some classes, and they were writing classes, fortunately. So I said, look, let's try to get this thing going again. I can teach writing classes online. Maybe we can get some other classes adapted for online. Maybe we can do some shows online. And so I started doing that. I'm busier than I've ever been teaching these online classes, I have to say. And it's great, but I'm lucky too, because these are online writing classes. So as far as doing things, one of the things my students do after they finish a term is they do a show, they do a live show. So how do you do that? And I think we're going to end up having to adapt things online. It's like if you watch the last few Saturday Night Live episodes, SNL at Home, just the leaps and strides that they were managing to do from the very first show to the third show. The production values, just unbelievable.
I know. I thought the same thing. The first show is clever, a little clunky sometimes, but I forgave everything because they were doing it at, first time at home and apart. And by that third one, it was brilliant,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They just that CGI stuff. It was,
Yeah,
they lose the live factor, but it's still they managed to actually put on a
right,
show.
right.
So
They did.
yeah, so I think that's what I'm going to. I'm giving all my students the option now of writing a regular sketch that they can do at a theater on stage,
Mhm.
and I'm also giving them the option you can instead write your sketches so you can do them on Zoom. You can do them
Right.
virtually, and
Well, IVCC is
Mhm.
doing the same thing. They had to suddenly go online. One of Dr. Keister's professional goals this year was to learn how to do online classes. Well, he was taking a course on how to, well, he started, he switched his speech and intro to theater, both had to go online. So I, it was really scary. I was his IT guy for the longest time. And so he's been doing that. And in the meantime, they started a class for instructors to learn how to do it online. So he's teaching online, learning how to teach online while putting together the summer semester. And then, of course, we had the cyber attack, which is still, being solved at Ivy. So yeah, it's been baptism by fire, that's for damn sure. But yeah, we're fortunate though, do we have this technology to do things like this. And
Yeah,
now more than ever, the arts. I hope people remember this when we come out of this, that it was the people in the arts that are singing for them online, that are trying to come up with any way to entertain people in the ways that we can. Because, like I said, I think we're in a wait and see situation here. We need to wrap up. I got a few questions for you just off the top of your head. We always send this with the COVID questionnaire. Um, I know you've been sheltering in place with your lovely wife and your dog now for, you've
Mhm.
been going to the stores at all? Like,
When we have to,
yeah,
not
that's
all,
us.
but
Grocery store.
yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah.
really grocery store and
Real
liquor
men.
store.
Yeah. Real men wear masks. I know. Okay. So since you've been quarantined here, which has been a while, what project did you say you were going to finish that you haven't even started yet?
Well, I wanted to do a sitcom script and I wanted to write a pilot script. I have not done that because I have a very good reason. I'm going to be teaching a pilot class starting in 3 weeks' time. And I
Okay.
want to work on the pilot script while I'm teaching the pilot class.
Okay.
So haven't
Make,
even.
sh- make sure you write a part for a mature actor that happens to be blonde and about your age. How
Right.
many how many times over the last 2 months have you completely lost track of what day it is?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Pretty much daily.
Daily, yeah. And the date, I couldn't even tell you. Now, what seems longer to you? The days or the weeks?
Ooh, what a good question. Um, I teach Sundays, Mondays, Tuesday, and Wednesdays. Those all seem kind of long. Those all seem kind of long in a good way.
Mm,
Then Wednesday night, when my class finishes, then I don't teach again until Sunday morning. That speeds by. Oh,
yeah,
it just zips by so fast.
I don't know. If the weekends came as fast as they seem to come, for me anyway, the days, there's some that's like, oh, is it only 3? But the weeks, all of a sudden it's like Saturday, and in here still it's like, oh, I think I have to do a show. Wait, there's no place to do a show, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But if the weekends came as fast as they seemed to come when I was working, I would have been really, really, really happy. Um,
Yeah.
what do you think your dog is thinking right now? That you lost your job or what?
Why is he still here?
Yeah,
Why is he not leaving? It's
I
morning.
know.
Why doesn't he go someplace?
I saw a funny thing. It was um, oh, what did that say? Where it said, my cat said I'm going out. Do you want me to leave the radio on for you, jerk?
Oh, yes.
um, what did you think you were really going to miss going into this? Oh man, I can't believe I'm going to miss this. But you found out that you really don't.
I'm not really missing anything now as long as the liquor stores stay open, I think.
Perfect. Last question.
Mhm.
Did you watch the Tiger King?
Of course. It's
All right.
wing, I think. Yeah. It's
So
so
tell me, did that bitch Carol Baskin kill her husband?
Oh,
I'm
sure.
quoting.
Oh, sure, of course. Yeah.
I think so too. They're doing a TV movie of it. Did you
Well,
see that?
there wasn't there like an extra episode too that
It was terrible.
we haven't caught up with that, so.
Yeah, we did, and bloom was off the rose. It wasn't so great. It wasn't so great. But the TV movie, I can't remember who they cast
Nicholas
as.
Cage, wasn't it? Wasn't it Nicholas
Yes. Oh, yes. I
Yeah.
can pass on that.
Cage?
Anyway, Howard, it's been we could talk for so much longer. There's so much stuff we haven't even touched here yet. But don't forget, if you're interested in seeing any of Howard's works here, his books are mostly, you said, in audio form or ebooks right now.
Yeah.
But go to Amazon, and now are you under Howard Johnson or Howard Kim Johnson or Kim Howard Johnson? I can
I
never
think it's
remember.
usually Kim Howard Johnson for most of the books.
Just Howard. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Because he's got all those Monty Python things out there. Thanks so much for sharing the memories. Don't forget, folks, next week when you come back and see us at 7:30, at that I have Kristen Mitchell from Stage 12 and Kathy Hepner from England Theater, with the three of us discussing where we're going from here with the state of theater and what we're hoping to do. Howard, I was thinking we've got all those gigantic parking lots out at IVCC. I'm seriously entertaining an outdoor show, like a drive-in.
Wow, what a great idea, Don.
Because while we could social distance audience in there, there's a little matter of how do you social distance a cast.
Yeah.
I guess
Problem.
we'd have to quarantine them all together so they couldn't see anybody else. I don't see problems with that at all, do you?
Do a big production of Love Letters, maybe.
Oh, I just said this the other week. How many productions are we going to see of Love Letters coming up with one actor on one side and one on the other reading for 2 hours?
Yeah.
I have no love lost for that show. I do not. And I've seen some great people do it. All right. Well, Howard, thank you so much for joining us. Chad, thanks for handling our tech tonight. Thanks to all of you for tuning in and watching us tonight. And for those of you that are watching us later, we appreciate it. Share this video. We're trying to keep the spirit alive of the performing arts here of all kinds. If you can think of any guests that you'd like to see us have on, we would love to have your suggestions. Just message us here on IVCC Fine Arts. Howard, stay safe.
And you, Don. Thank you for having me. Thank you for watching.
My pleasure.